What's going on? It's Trending Story. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more well informed, make sure to subscribe and activate the notifications bell so you don't miss anything.
There are stories left and right of young women being locked up and kidnapped by men for their own torturous needs. But what if your kidnapper was your own mother? Aristocrat Blanche Monnier's story may be over a century or old, but that doesn't make it any less terrifying. Finally discovered when she was 50 years old, Monnier was only 55 pounds, laying in a hay bed covered in feces, urine, bugs, and food scraps. While calm during the rescue, it was clear Monnier suffered mental damage from the capture. What led her mother to lock her in such horrid conditions? Like every other French socialite in 1976, Monnier was desperate for love. At 25, she was still unmarried and was desperate to move on with her life out of her mother's home. There, she found love in the form of an older lawyer. In 1901, an anonymous letter arrived at the Poitiers police station that a young woman was being held captive in 21 Rue de la Visitation. The police showed up to the house to investigate, and when they knocked on the door, no one answered, even though they could hear movement from the inside and see the flutter of curtains moving as Madame Monnier peeked out the window. They decided to break in and searched every room for this captive woman. When they opened the attic door, they saw the skeleton-like Blanche Monnier. She was now 50 years old and had not seen daylight for 25 years. Blanche was totally naked, and she hid her body and face under her blanket because the sunlight was too much to handle. She was terrified and completely deranged. She only weighed 55 pounds. One of the police officers wrote in his statement, "We immediately gave the order to open the casement window. This was done with great difficulty. The old dark curtains fell a heavy shower of dust. To open the shutters, it was necessary to remove them from their hinges." Blanche had been lying on a straw mattress that had gone rotten, and she was lying in her own filth. Crumbs of food and bugs were all over. The smell was so bad, the police officers didn't want to go inside to investigate. Blanche was taken to the Hotel du Hospital. The doctors thought she was going to die, well, because she was so thin. The nurses gave her a bath, and she kept saying how lovely it was being clean and how thankful she was to be free. It was still difficult for her to be in the sunlight because of her sensitivity. When the police were raiding her home, Madame Monnier was sitting in her living room, completely calm. Her brother was still living in the house, which clearly shows that his mother had also manipulated him for moving on and having his own life, even well into his 50s. But he tried to claim that Blanche brought this all upon herself. When he and his mother were brought to court, Marcel testified that Blanche was an angry woman who was full of rage. Gee, wonder why. And that they believed she was mentally ill. He said that only a crazy person would choose to stay in solitary confinement over agreeing to break up with someone, and this was why they kept her locked up. They figured that she must be crazy and deserved to be imprisoned. He also tried to claim that she never even tried to escape the room, and that after they locked her in there, she simply accepted her fate and decided to stay. Obviously, this wasn't true. An entire group of policemen had to work together to take down the shutters from the window. There was no way the weak and starving Blanche could have done that on her own. Neighbors came to testify at the trial, claiming that they thought they could hear the screams of a woman shouting "police" out the blocked window. This is most likely where the anonymous letter came from. Someone probably noticed the screams that continued on for 25 years. Blanche also never acted violent or lashed out at any of the doctors or nurses. She was calm and very grateful to have been saved. Tragically, she never got to see her lover again. He had died in 1885. Her mother was found guilty of her crimes and she was sent to jail, but she was so old she died only 15 days after her capture. Her brother was given a sentence of a year in jail, but he was a lawyer, so he knew how to protect himself. He appealed the charges and was able to go free. Blanche was able to put on some weight at the hospital, but after being in solitary confinement for 25 years, they say she lost her mind. She also had nowhere to go. She was 50 years old and could not very likely find a husband and move on with her life. And she sure wasn't going to move back in with her brother. So she was sent to live in the Blois Psychiatric Hospital, where she died in 1913. Looking back, some people debate whether Blanche Monnier was truly insane or not. After all, she could have lied to her mom for the sake of getting out of the room, and then she could have run away with her boyfriend. Others believe that she was perfectly sane before going into the attic, and the solitary confinement drove her to become insane in the dark. There have been studies that theorize that Blanche was showing signs of bad behavior long before the incident, but much of it could have been chalked up to teenage angst and rebellion. The brother, being a lawyer, wormed his way out of his year-long sentence shortly after appealing the charges. Yet Blanche was robbed of her life, and considering she was a 50-year-old woman with nowhere to go, she was admitted to a psych hospital where she lived for the remainder of her life. No justice was given to Blanche, as she lost over half her life thanks to her mother. While this is a shocking case of abuse, it begs the question: how many women were put into similar situations, only for them to cave within 24 hours and agree to break off the relationship? How long had violence and torture been used to oppress women from making their own choices? Since these family matters always happen behind closed doors, we really never may know. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.